I stood in my penthouse, looking at my bank statement. $4.7 billion. I had everything money could buy. Everything except someone who loved me for who I really was. So I made the craziest decision of my life. I would become poor. Well, not actually poor, but poor enough. And what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and what it really means to be wealthy. My name is Marcus Bennett, and until 6 months ago, I was living a lie. Not the kind of lie you're thinking of. I was living the truth, actually. The truth that I was a successful corporate lawyer. The truth that I lived in a modest apartment in Brooklyn. The truth that I took the subway to work every day. What I wasn't telling anyone was that I also happened to be the anonymous founder and majority shareholder of Apex Consolidated, a private equity firm worth $8 billion. Or that the modest apartment was one of 5 properties I owned. Or that the reason I took the subway wasn't because I couldn't afford a car, but because I was tired of people treating me differently the moment they learned my net worth. Let me back up. 3 years ago, I was dating someone named Victoria. She was beautiful, intelligent, everything you could want on paper. We'd been together for 8 months when I finally told her the truth about my wealth. I thought we were close enough. I thought she loved me for me. The change was instant. Suddenly, she wanted to quit her job. She started talking about exotic vacations, charity galas, meeting the right people. Within 2 months, she had mentally redecorated my life, and I wasn't even a part of the picture anymore. I was just a bank account with a pulse. When I ended things, she didn't even seem hurt, just angry that she'd wasted almost a year on me. That word, wasted, stuck with me. Our entire relationship had been real to me. To her, it was only valuable if it came with a certain bank balance. After Victoria, I dated 2 more women as Billionaire Marcus. Both relationships followed the same pattern. Genuine interest turns to calculated affection, love turns to lifestyle planning, partnership turns to parasitism. So I decided to try something different, something insane. I would become someone else. Not completely, I was still Marcus Bennett, still a lawyer, but I would be Marcus Bennett, the associate attorney making $120,000 a year. Marcus Bennett, who lived in a rent-controlled Brooklyn apartment. Marcus Bennett, who worried about student loans and saved up for nice dinners. I created an entire alternate life. I rented an actual modest apartment in Williamsburg. I opened a new bank account with a middle-class balance. I bought regular clothes from regular stores. I even traded my Mercedes for a 7-year-old Honda Civic. My best friend Jake, who knew everything, thought I'd lost my mind. You're going to live like you're broke to find love? What happens when you find someone? You just spring it on them? Surprise, honey, I'm secretly a billionaire? I'll cross that bridge when I get there, I told him. Right now, I just want to know what it feels like to be wanted for me. That's how I met Emma. It was a Thursday evening in late March. I was at a community legal clinic in Brooklyn, something I'd been doing pro bono for years, even before my experiment. It was one of the few genuinely good things I did that had nothing to do with money or prestige. She walked in 15 minutes before we closed, clutching a folder of documents, looking exhausted and worried. She had auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, wore scrubs with cartoon characters on them, and had the kind of face that was pretty without trying to be. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said breathlessly. "My shift ran over and I wasn't sure if you'd still be open, but my landlord is trying to evict me and I don't know what to do and—" "Breathe," I said, smiling. "You're fine. Sit down. Let's see what we're dealing with." Her name was Emma Richardson. She was a pediatric nurse at Brooklyn Methodist. Her landlord was trying to evict her so he could renovate and triple the rent, but he was cutting corners on the legal process. It took me about 10 minutes to spot 6 violations of New York tenant law in his filing. "This is actually good news," I told her. She laughed, a surprised, musical sound. "How is any of this good news?" "Because your landlord is an idiot who didn't follow the law. You're not going anywhere. I can file a response that'll stop this in its tracks." The relief on her face was so genuine, so unguarded, that something in my chest tightened. "How much will that cost?" she asked quietly, and I could see her bracing for bad news. "Nothing. That's what this clinic is for." "Nothing?" "Nothing." She looked at me like I'd just told her she'd won the lottery. For someone like me, who'd spent years around people who thought nothing of spending thousands on a single dinner, her gratitude over free legal help was startling. "Thank you," she said, and her eyes were actually wet. "You have no idea what this means. I've been so stressed I can barely sleep." We spent the next hour going through her case. She told me about her job, how she worked with kids with cancer, how she'd moved to New York 5 years ago from a small town in Ohio to work at one of the best pediatric oncology units in the country. She talked about her patients like they were family. "Do you like being a lawyer?" she asked me at one point. The question caught me off guard. Most people asked me how much I made or what kind of law I practiced. No one asked if I liked it. "I do," I said honestly. "I like helping people. I like solving puzzles. I like when the law actually works the way it's supposed to." She smiled. "That's a good answer. My little brother wants to go to law school. He asks me if it's worth it, and I never know what to tell him. Is he doing it because he wants to help people or because he wants to make money?" "Both, probably. We grew up poor, like really poor, so money matters. But he's also got this huge sense of justice. He's always defending the underdog." "Then he should do it," I said. "The law needs people who care." When she left that night, she shook my hand, thanked me 3 more times, and told me she'd bring me coffee when she came back to sign the papers. I watched her walk out into the evening, and I realized I was smiling. She came back 2 days later with coffee and homemade cookies. "You didn't have to do this," I said. "I wanted to. It's my grandmother's recipe. They're nothing fancy, but they're good." They were better than good. They were perfect, warm and sweet, and made with actual care. We filed her response to the eviction. Then she asked if I wanted to grab dinner. "To say thank you," she clarified quickly, "for everything." We went to a small Thai place around the corner. We talked for 3 hours. She was funny and smart and passionate about her work. She told me about growing up in a town where the biggest excitement was the Friday night high school football game, about putting herself through nursing school while working 2 jobs, about her parents, who'd never made much money, but who'd given her and her brother everything they could. I told her about growing up in Chicago, about my mother who taught elementary school, and my father who'd been a public defender. All of that was true. I just left out the part about how I'd turned a $50,000 inheritance from my grandfather into a billion-dollar empire. "What about you?" she asked. "Have you always wanted to be a lawyer?" "My dad was a lawyer," I said. "He worked with people who couldn't afford representation. He used to say the law was only as good as its accessibility. I wanted to be like him." That was true too. My father had died when I was 22, right after I graduated from college. Everything I'd built since then, I'd built partly to honor him, partly to prove to myself that I could. "He sounds like a good man," Emma said softly. "He was the best." When I walked her to the subway station that night, she turned to me with this shy smile. "I know you were technically working when we met, but would you maybe want to do this again? When I'm not a client?" "I'd really like that," I said. We started seeing each other regularly. coffee dates before her shifts, dinners at cheap restaurants we'd find on random Brooklyn side streets, long walks through Prospect Park. She introduced me to her friends, other nurses, and a rotating cast of residents from her hospital. I introduced her to Jake, who pulled me aside the first chance he got. "You have to tell her," he hissed. "I will." "When?" "When the time is right." "Marcus, there's never going to be a right time to tell someone you've been lying about being a billionaire." "I haven't been lying. I just haven't told her." "That's the definition of lying by omission, you idiot." He was right, of course, but every time I thought about telling Emma, I stopped myself. Because things were so good. She liked me. Not my money, not my connections, not what I could do for her. Just me. We'd been dating for 2 months when she invited me to her apartment for dinner. She'd been talking about cooking for me for weeks. Her place was small, a studio in a not great part of Bushwick, but she'd made it warm and homey with plants and photos and string lights. She'd spent hours making lasagna from scratch, and I could tell she'd put her entire grocery budget into this meal. "This is incredible," I said, and I meant it. It was the best meal I'd had in months, and I'd had dinner at 3 Michelin-star restaurants in that time. "Really?" She looked genuinely anxious. "I'm not the best cook, but I wanted to make something special." "Emma, it's perfect. You're perfect." She blushed, actually blushed, and I wanted to tell her everything right then. But I didn't. After dinner, we sat on her tiny couch and she put her head on my shoulder. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Anything." "I really like you, Marcus. Like, more than I've liked anyone in a long time. You're kind and you're real and you don't have an ego about everything. My ex was so obsessed with status and money and impressing people. You're just yourself." The guilt hit me like a physical blow. "Emma, wait, let me finish. I just want you to know that this, what we have, it means something to me. You mean something to me." She kissed me then, and I kissed her back, and I told myself I'd tell her tomorrow, next week, soon. It all fell apart on a Tuesday in June. Emma had been talking about her hospital's annual fundraising gala for weeks. It was one of the biggest events of the year for Brooklyn Methodist, raising money for the pediatric oncology unit where she worked. "I know it's not really your scene," she said. "It's going to be a bunch of rich people writing checks and patting themselves on the back. But it would mean a lot to me if you came." "Of course I'll come," I said. I should have known better. I should have anticipated the risk. But I'd gotten comfortable in my double life. Careless. The gala was at a hotel in Manhattan. Emma looked beautiful in a simple black dress she'd told me she'd found at a consignment shop. We walked in together, her hand in mine, and I felt genuinely happy. That lasted about 20 minutes. "Marcus? Marcus Bennett?" I turned, and my stomach dropped. Elizabeth Crane, a major philanthropist and someone I'd sat on 2 nonprofit boards with. Someone who definitely knew who I really was. "Elizabeth," I said, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. "I didn't know you'd be here. How wonderful." She air-kissed both my cheeks while Emma watched with a slightly confused smile. "How long has it been?"
"Since the Met Gala?"
"Something like that," I muttered. "You must introduce me to your date," Elizabeth said, turning her megawatt smile on Emma. "This is Emma. Emma, this is Elizabeth Crane." "So lovely to meet you," Elizabeth said. "Marcus and I go way back. Tell me, dear, how do you know this generous, elusive man? I've been trying to get him to donate to my literacy foundation for months. He's impossible to pin down." I could feel Emma looking at me. "We met through work," she said slowly. "Oh, are you a lawyer as well?" "No, I'm a nurse. I work here, actually, at Brooklyn Methodist." "How wonderful! And Marcus, always so humble." Elizabeth patted my arm. "Even with everything you've built, you still make time to attend these events. That's why I've always admired you." "Elizabeth," I said quietly, desperately, "can we—" But she was already continuing. oblivious to the disaster she was creating. I was just telling the Hendersons that we need more young philanthropists like you, especially after that incredible gift you made to Children's Hospital last year. How much was it? 10 million? The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's hand slipped from mine. "Excuse me," she said, her voice very small. "I need to use the restroom." She walked away before I could stop her. "Did I say something wrong?" Elizabeth asked, finally picking up on the tension. I barely heard her. I was already moving, following Emma, catching up to her in the hallway outside the ballroom. "Emma, wait, please." She turned, and the look on her face broke something in me. It wasn't anger, it was hurt. Deep, genuine hurt. $10 million, she said quietly. You donated $10 million to a hospital. Emma. Who are you? Her voice cracked. Because you're not Marcus Bennett, the associate lawyer who worries about student loans. That person doesn't exist, does he? I am Marcus Bennett. Everything I've told you about myself is true. I just what? Just forgot to mention you're secretly rich? How rich, Marcus? How much are we talking about? I couldn't lie to her anymore. A lot. Billions. She actually laughed, but it was a broken sound. Billions, of course. And you've been, what, slumming it in Brooklyn? Playing pretend with the regular people? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me for 4 months. I wasn't lying. I was just trying to find someone who could love me for who I am, not what I have. Who you are includes what you have, Marcus. You don't get to separate those things. You think you're so noble, hiding your money, but you know what you really did? You took away my choice. You made me think we were equals, that we were building something real, but the whole time you were testing me. I was some kind of experiment to you. That's not true, wasn't it? Her eyes were wet now. Did you laugh about it with your rich friends? Look at me, dating a nurse who thinks I'm normal. Emma, no. God, no. I was falling in love with you. She flinched like I'd hit her. Don't. Don't you dare say that now. Love doesn't start with lies. I was going to tell you. When? When were you going to tell me? After we moved in together? After we got married? Or were you just going to keep playing pretend forever? I had no answer, because she was right. I'd kept putting it off, kept enjoying the fantasy. I have to go, she said, wiping her eyes. I have to get back to the gala. I work here, remember? I'm one of the staff they're raising money for. Emma, please, can we talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. You're not who I thought you were, and I can't do this. She walked back into the ballroom, leaving me standing in the hallway, watching the only real thing I'd had in years disappear. I tried calling her the next day. She didn't answer. I tried texting. Nothing. I sent flowers to her apartment with a note. Please let me explain. Please. She sent them back with a note of her own. I can't trust you. Please respect that. Jake found me 3 days later sitting in my actual penthouse apartment, staring at nothing. You look like hell, he said. I feel worse. You want to tell me what happened? I told him everything. The gala, Elizabeth, Emma's face. She's right, I said finally. About all of it. I was testing her. I was lying. I was so obsessed with finding someone who loved me for me that I never stopped to think about what I was taking from her. Her agency, her choice, the truth. Jake sat down next to me. So what are you going to do? What can I do? She won't talk to me. Figure out how to make it right. How? I don't know, Marcus, but you're supposedly a genius businessman and a brilliant lawyer. Use that brain of yours for something that actually matters. It took me 2 weeks to come up with a plan. 2 weeks of thinking, of trying to understand where I'd gone wrong and how I could possibly fix it. I couldn't undo the lie. I couldn't take back the broken trust. But I could show her who I really was. All of me. The parts I'd hidden and the parts I'd shown her. I called Emma's hospital and asked to speak to the director of development. I told them I wanted to make an anonymous donation, the single largest donation in the hospital's history, $50 million, earmarked specifically for the pediatric oncology unit where Emma worked. But there was a condition. The donation had to be announced publicly, and Emma had to be the one to announce it. I wanted her to see what I was doing with my wealth. I wanted her to know that the man she'd fallen for, the one who believed in helping people, was real. Then I did something harder. I wrote her a letter, an actual, physical letter. I spent hours on it, drafting and redrafting, trying to find the words. Dear Emma, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this whole letter. But I need to try to explain, not because it excuses what I did, but because you deserve the truth. All of it. You were right about everything you said. I was testing you. I was lying by omission. I was so afraid of being wanted for my money that I never stopped to think about what I was taking from you by hiding it. I grew up watching my father give everything he had to help people. When he died, I inherited a small amount of money, and I promised myself I'd build something meaningful with it, something he'd be proud of. I built a business, and it grew beyond anything I could have imagined. But here's what I didn't expect. The money changed how people saw me. Friends became networking opportunities. Dates became auditions for the role of billionaire's wife. People who I thought cared about me suddenly only cared about what I could do for them. After my last relationship ended, I was angry and hurt, and I made a choice. I decided to hide who I was, to find someone who could love me without the money complicating everything. What I didn't realize was that I was doing the exact thing I accused everyone else of. I was seeing people as their relationship to money. I was so focused on finding someone who didn't care about wealth that I forgot people are more than that. You're more than that. You're Emma, who works herself to exhaustion taking care of sick children, who saves up to buy ingredients for homemade lasagna, who cried with relief over free legal help, who sees the good in people even when they don't deserve it. The man you met at that legal clinic, the one who helped you with your landlord, who walked with you in the park, who laughed at your stories about terrible first dates, that was me. All me. The truest version of myself I've been in years. But you're right that it wasn't all of me. And you deserved all of me. The success and the wealth and the complications that come with it. You deserved the choice to decide if that was something you could handle. I took that from you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorrier than I know how to say. I don't know if we can come back from this. Maybe trust, once broken, can't be repaired. But I want you to know that what we had was real. The realest thing in my life. And you changed me. You reminded me why I started all of this in the first place, why my father believed in the law, why helping people matters more than having people. I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed you to know the truth, all of it, including this. I love you. I fell in love with you the first night we met, when you thanked me 3 times for something that should have been a basic right. I fell in love with you every day after that. And I'll love you even if I never see you again. You told me that love doesn't start with lies. You're right. But maybe, sometimes, it starts with truth, even when it comes too late. Yours, Marcus. I had the letter delivered to her apartment by courier. Then I waited. 3 days passed. Nothing. A week. Silence. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? It's me. Emma's voice, quiet and careful. My heart stopped. Emma. I got your letter, and I heard about the donation. $50 million, Marcus. It's what your unit deserves. It's what those kids deserve." There was a long pause. "Can we meet?" "Anywhere, anytime." "The Thai place, the one we went to on our first date, tomorrow at 7? "I'll be there." I arrived 20 minutes early. She arrived exactly on time, and I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my chair. She looked tired, beautiful, but tired. We sat down. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. "I've been thinking," Emma finally said, "about what you said in your letter, about truth and trust and love." "Emma, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "When I found out who you really were, I felt betrayed. I felt like an idiot, like our whole relationship was built on a lie. It wasn't. I know that now. Because I spent 2 weeks going through every conversation we had, every moment, trying to figure out what was real and what was fake. And you know what I realized? It was all real. The way you talked about your work, your father, helping people, the way you listened to me, the way you made me laugh. That was you, the real you. Hope flickered in my chest, dangerous and bright. But, she continued, and the hope dimmed. I also realized something else. I spent so much time being angry at you for lying that I didn't ask myself the hard question. Would I have given you a chance if you'd told me the truth from the beginning? Would you have? She was quiet for a long time. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe not. Because you're right that money changes things. I would have been nervous and self-conscious and worried about not being good enough for your world. I might have said no before we even began. So where does that leave us? I don't know, she said, and her eyes were wet. I'm still hurt. I'm still angry. But I also miss you. I miss us. And I hate that I miss you because it feels like I'm betraying myself. I reached across the table, slowly, carefully, and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I know I can't undo what I did, I said. But I want to try, if you'll let me. No more hiding, no more lies. Just me, all of me, and whatever that means for us. What does it mean? For us, I mean. Your life, it's so different from mine. I'm a nurse who lives in a tiny apartment. You're a billionaire who lives in, what, a penthouse? 2 penthouses, actually, I said, and when her eyes widened, I added quickly, but I'd give them both up in a heartbeat if it meant having you back. The money, the status, none of it matters as much as you do. That's easy to say when you have it. You're right, it is. But Emma, I've had the money. I've lived that life. I've had people who wanted me for what I have, and I was miserable. The only time I've been happy in years was with you. She wiped her eyes. I don't want to be a project or a charity case or proof that you're a good person. You're not. You never were. You're the person I fell in love with, the person who makes me want to be better, the person who reminds me why any of this matters. I'm scared, she whispered. Scared that your world will swallow me up, that I'll lose myself trying to fit into your life. Then we don't do it that way. We build something new, something that's ours. I don't need you to fit into my life, Emma. I want to build a life with you. She looked at me for a long time, and I could see her weighing everything, the hurt and the hope, the risk and the reward. I can't promise this will work, she finally said. I know. And I need time to trust you again, to figure out what this means. Whatever you need. And we need to be honest about everything, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She squeezed my hand. Okay. Okay? Okay, we can try. Slowly, carefully, but we can try. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in weeks. Thank you. Thank you for giving me another chance. Don't make me regret it, she said, but she was almost smiling. That was 6 months ago. It hasn't been easy. There were hard conversations about money and power and privilege, about what it means to love someone from a completely different world, about trust and honesty, and how to build something real when the foundation was cracked. Emma met my friends from my real life, and it was awkward at first. She felt out of place at fancy restaurants and charity events, but she also held her own, reminding all of us that wealth doesn't equal worth, and that the work she does every day, saving children's lives, matters more than any business deal. I met her family, flew them all out to New York, and introduced myself as what I am, a lawyer and businessman who loves their daughter. Her father pulled me aside and told me that if I ever hurt her again, my money wouldn't protect me. I believed him. We're taking it slow. She still has her apartment, though I've offered 1,000 times to get her a better place. She refuses, saying she needs to keep some things that are just hers. I respect that, even though her apartment's heating doesn't work half the time. She comes to my penthouse sometimes, usually late at night after hard shifts. She says it's surreal living in two worlds, but she also says she's learning that people are complicated, that you can be both wealthy and kind, poor and generous, that life doesn't fit into the simple categories we want it to. Last week, I asked her to move in with me. Not into the penthouse, but into something new. A brownstone in Brooklyn, close to her hospital, that we could make ours together. She said yes. We're still figuring it out. How to merge our lives. How to navigate the gap between her world and mine. How to build trust on top of broken foundations. But here's what I've learned. Love isn't about finding someone who loves you despite who you are. It's about finding someone who loves all of who you are, the parts you're proud of and the parts you're not, the money and the mistakes, the truth and the lies you tell yourself. Emma knows all of me now, the brilliant lawyer, the billionaire businessman, the man who was so afraid of being used that he lied to protect himself, the man who screwed up and is trying to do better. And somehow, impossibly, she loves me anyway. Not despite the money, not because of it, just because of me. That's the thing I was looking for all along. Not someone who didn't care about my wealth, but someone who cared about me more than my wealth. Someone who saw the money as part of the complicated, messy, imperfect person I am, and chose me anyway. I thought I had to hide my wealth to find true love. What I learned is that true love means being seen completely. The good and the bad, the wealth and the wounds, and being loved not in spite of those things or because of them, but alongside them. Emma still calls me out when I'm being out of touch, when I forget that not everyone can just fly somewhere for the weekend, or when I'm dismissive of how much something costs. She keeps me grounded. She keeps me real. And I try to show her every day that the man she fell for, the one who helped her with her landlord and walked with her in the park, is still here. That he was always real, even when he was hiding half of himself. Last night we were sitting in my penthouse looking out over the city, and she turned to me and said, "You know what's funny?" "What?" "I used to dream about this, meeting someone successful and stable, someone who could give me the security I never had growing up. And when I met you, when I thought you were just a regular lawyer, I was so happy because I realized I didn't need that. I just needed someone good." "And now?" She smiled. "Now I know I was right. I don't need the money or the penthouse or any of it. But I'm glad you have it, because I see what you do with it. The donations, the pro bono work, the way you're trying to use what you have to make things better. That's who you are. And that's who I love." I kissed her then, and I thought about my father, about how he always said the law was only as good as its accessibility, how he believed that privilege came with responsibility. I'd spent years building wealth and hiding from it, afraid of what it meant, afraid of how it changed people's perception of me. But Emma taught me that wealth isn't the problem. Hiding is. Lying is. Being ashamed of what you have instead of being responsible with it. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm Marcus Bennett, lawyer and businessman and billionaire. I'm the guy who takes the subway and helps people with their landlord problems and happens to have more money than most people will see in a lifetime. And I'm the guy who almost lost everything that mattered because I was too afraid to be seen. But not anymore. Emma sees me, all of me, and that's worth more than any amount of money in the world. 6 months ago, I had $4.7 billion and no one who truly knew me. Today, I have someone who knows every part of me, the good and the bad, the truth and the lies I told. I almost lost her because I was so obsessed with finding someone who loved me for me that I forgot the most important thing. You have to show people who you really are before they can love you for it. Money doesn't ruin love. Fear does. Dishonesty does. But when you find someone brave enough to see all of you and love you anyway, that's real wealth. That's the kind of fortune you can't fake, hide, or buy. And it's worth more than everything else combined. Do you like this story? Where are you watching from? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you.